All right, everybody. Good. We decided it's Monday, right?
Right. We're a little confused because we've been working all
Working
weekend
for a while. Yeah. Good Monday afternoon. The 10 Tampa Bay Chief Meteorologist Bobby Deskin's here, and we got meteorologist Rick Kirby here as well too. Let's get you the latest on the storm now. And as of 2 o'clock, now 2 o'clock we get basically numbers updated for the storm. I'm going to take you back out the bigger picture, and you can see we've got a 60-mile-per-hour storm now. The center jogged to the north and is now moving over land in Cuba. So good news, especially if it can tend to weaken a little bit right there. That's what we're hoping for. It looks like that's starting. It was at 65-mile-per-hour winds. In fact, did it get to 70? It was almost to 70 at one point. Moving to the northwest at 14 miles per hour. Pressure's come up just a little bit at 1,007 millibars. That's showing a little bit of weakening. And again, that is what is expected. Rain bands are actually now moving north from this system, the flow around it, and you can see they're already pushing in to our neck of the woods. So this rain you see on the south end of I-4, south side of I-4, that's kind of associated with it.
Yeah.
So we'll be watching for a quick spin up in one of those. I don't think it's a big tornado threat today, but certainly tomorrow afternoon and evening, the tornado threat will be coming up.
Yeah, and it could, some of those bands could bring some heavy rain. The National Weather Service put out a flood watch in talking about today's rain.
Yeah.
In some locations, could be as much as 3 inches, so 1 to 3 inches on top of what we expect with the main storm when it pushes through.
And that's on top of what we had over the weekend, Thursday, Friday, especially Saturday.
So very saturated ground.
Yeah. So.
And what's that do, Bobby? I mean, that's one thing when you get some wind eventually too, and now you're concerned with saturated grounds, of trees toppling, things like that.
Trees a lot easier to fall over when that happens, and so that's why we want to keep a close eye on that. We are thinking that, let me get some of your comments up here real fast, that the highest winds will be right along the immediate coast, which has been saturated there too, but that's the area where we'll see the best chance to have trees go down because of how saturated the ground is. I can't see any of the.
I've got some comments here.
Okay,
So.
you got them. All right, good.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go on ahead and get you back out to the track now. This is the main concern for us. Tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock, it's starting to re-strengthen. It's west of Key West. By 8 p.m. tomorrow evening, it's just southwest of us. Now, this track has actually shifted a little to the left, a little bit to the west, which is actually pretty good news. Right now, most of the tropical storm force winds extend outwards about 70 miles from the center. So the further this can go offshore, the more those winds will stay offshore. But we're going to be pretty close to it on the right side. The right side of the storm is going to be the strongest side of the storm. And right now, it's looking like a pretty decent tropical storm, right? We're not thinking hurricane at this particular point. But Tuesday evening, 8 p.m., west-southwest of Tampa with 65-mile-per-hour winds. And then by sunrise on Wednesday, even before that, it's getting up towards the Big Bend area with potential landfall near Citrus County, but right now the forecast is calling for north and west, up near Cedar Key would be a chance for that. And then you can see it moving off towards the northeast, right up the southeast coast. Winds will fall apart pretty quickly. There'll be a flooding threat, of course, for us. There'll be a tornado threat for us, and there'll really be a flooding threat and even an isolated tornado threat all the way up the southeast coast through the Carolinas.
And you see it re-intensify just a little when it comes off of the coast.
Yeah.
It gets back up to 45. So there could be a little weather there, across the northeast.
Yeah.
With that wind coming on shore.
It'll become extratropical eventually, but it'll be out high to the northeast. Now, here we go. So the tracks are actually pretty. Look at the agreement we have right here. If we can get it on the left side of that track, that would be good. The highest winds would stay just offshore. We wouldn't have as much to worry about. A couple models coming back towards us, but right now almost everything's trending to keep the center just offshore. Now, kind of double-edged sword. Depends on how big it is, and I mean by physical diameter, right, of that wind field, because staying out over water here is going to not knock it down in intensity.
Right.
It's going to stay up. It's going to stay 60, 65-mile-per-hour winds, like they're calling. And then extended forecast models, you can see pretty much in agreement with what the Hurricane Center has on their particular track. And that makes sense, right? The model's getting a whole lot more in agreement. So, tropical storm warnings now for the entire, well, I shouldn't say that, but from the Big Bend, from the Big Bend all the way southward. The blue you see here along the coast. Those are tropical storm warnings. And that's mainly for the area, literally US 19 corridor, down all of Pinellas and then very western Manatee, Sarasota County. Okay? Eastern Sarasota and Manatee County, you have a tropical storm watch because we don't think the 40-mile-per-hour winds, sustained winds, are going to get that far inland. It's just mainly a coastal issue. And that goes the same thing when you've got Eastern Hillsborough County just in a watch, while, say, Ruskin, Apollo Beach, you're right there on the water. You've got a warning just because the winds will be higher. Most of central and eastern, Wesley Chapel, Lutz, Dade City, tropical storm watch for you. Newport Richey, Hudson, all the way up US 19, Weeki Wachee, all the way up US 19 to Crystal River, tropical storm warning. You get just east of there, Spring Hill, Lecanto, Inverness, tropical storm watch. All right, so the highest chances of seeing high winds, obviously here, as you can see, are right along the immediate coast.
Now, if that comes across Cuba and it determines maybe it's going to track closer to the coast, that could change, right?
100%. They could move that inland, and if you're just east of US 19, you act like you have a warning, right? Just pretend it's close enough. So what are we talking about threat-wise? So these are the threats, and this is Tuesday afternoon at 4 o'clock. All right, and this is especially in that area where we have the warning, right along the immediate coast. You can take the numbers I'm going to show you here in a little bit and decrease all of that as you work your way inland. But timing-wise, most areas in our DMA, in our viewing area, will have this timing here. So let's start with the winds. 4 p.m. tomorrow afternoon. I had a friend say daycare has canceled for tomorrow. They're closing. Most of the day is okay, but the second half of the day, the pickup time, we're going to have 30 to 40 mile per hour winds potentially in the area at that time, 4 or 5 o'clock.
For a lot of people, a concern is going to be the bridges too, because we start to hit 40, then we could have some issues on the bridges.
Yeah, the Skyway Bridge by tomorrow afternoon, by 3 to 4 o'clock, we're going to have to watch that. FDOT and FHP has clarified that, we normally say 40 mile per hour winds will shut the bridges down. They normally don't do that. And they've said pretty much they're not going to shut the Howard Franklin, the Courtney Campbell, and the Gandy down at 40. They're not going to do that. If debris gets on the bridge, if water, too much spray is on the bridge, that type of thing, the tide's getting too high, then they'll do it. But as a rule, they're not sitting there looking at 40 mile per hour winds. On the Skyway, they are. That's a narrow bridge. It's really high. The winds are higher up there at the top of that apex. And so they've got sensors up there and anemometers, and they'll shut it down when it gets to that. Once the Skyway shuts down, I really think it will. That would be tomorrow, I'd say early afternoon, 2, 3, 4 o'clock. It will most likely not open up until maybe sunrise or so, a little bit before that on Wednesday. All right, so that's the Skyway Bridge. Keep that in mind. Rainfall, good 2 to 4 inches of rainfall. There'll be some spots that get 6, 7 inches of rainfall just from training of storms. But again, remember, this is on top of everything that we've seen. And also remember that some places saw 4 inches of rainfall on Saturday alone. Right? So thinking getting another 4 inches, it's not terrible, but we're saturated, so water's going to pile up quicker. And we're going to have the normal areas that flood from rainfall. Again, not storm surge. We're not talking storm surge yet. We're talking rainfall. The normal spots, like, man, when it gets heavy rain, I know in between my house and my neighbors, it's going to fill up.
Every time, right.
It's kind of full now, and it's just now starting to soak in.
Yeah.
That's coming back, right? I know that's coming back. But then when you get some very heavy downpours, you're going to have some areas that don't normally flood that are going to flood, and a lot of those will be intersections, things like that. So keep in mind if you're driving around.
And these rivers are going to rise.
Yeah.
They're already, a lot of them are already pushing it, right?
100%. Mayaca was it the Manatee or the Mayaca River was coming up. It's going to go back down. River flood occurrences lag the actual rainfall. So the rain falls all over the area, right? It falls into the river basin. Well, the river's right in the middle of the river basin, right? It takes time for the water that's falling on the outsides to drain down into the river. That time is 1, 2, 3 days.
But it will be accelerated, won't it? Because the ground's so saturated.
Yeah.
The runoff will be probably a little quicker than it normally would.
So when you see a flood warning, and when will the water get to the highest? When will it peak on the river? That could be 2, 3 days after the storm. So we'll be talking Thursday, Friday time frame for some of those rivers to really swell up to. And we'll cover that for you right now, but I just expect them to be near flood stage. I really don't see anything major, but we can't rule out some areas just getting a whole bunch of rainfall training over the same area. We've seen that before. Tornado threat. The tornadoes, as the winds start to pick up, so will the tornado threat. As the center of the storm goes by, tomorrow evening, 9, 10, 11, 12 o'clock, the tornado threat drops. because the tornado threat's kind of on the leading edge of the storm, though, right front quadrant, like your shirt. We got to show on your shirt. So the tornado threat will be going down. Tornadoes that are usually in hurricanes, you'll be lucky if it's showing up on the radars as a spin for 5 minutes. So I've seen them go long. I've seen some of them go 20, 25 minutes, which is pretty long. Most of them pop up and they go out. You don't see the rotation anymore. They can cause damage. We don't know if all of them are touching the ground with the radar, but we assume that they are, and so that's something that we'll be breaking in for. Storm surge. Storm surge will come on the back of the storm. So as the storm is just about parallel to Tampa, maybe just southwest of us, we're going to start having winds blow onshore. So east to southeast winds are going to start this, and then we're going to have south to southwest winds on the backside as it moves by. And that's likely, as you can see here, going to be around midnight, 1, 2, 3, 4 in the morning on Tuesday night into Wednesday morning. And that's going to be our best chance.
It's the southwest wind.
Southwest
That's where
winds.
water starts to get pushed.
100%. Now, Oldsmar, Safety Harbor, even somewhat Bayshore, a good southeast wind, east to southeast wind that's developing through the afternoon tomorrow is going to pile the water up. New moon is Thursday or Friday, so tides are running high anyways. Okay, so how much water, well, I'll go over tides, but how much water can even get pushed back out is going to be tough. I think that by the time we get towards tomorrow afternoon, water levels are going to be a little bit higher there in Safety Harbor and Oldsmar. You're going to be able to notice it. Gusts up to about 60 miles per hour. Overall rain, as I said, 2 to 4, but some areas are going to get more than that. And right now, storm surge is looking a good 2 to 4 feet with the 4 foot, 3 to 4 foot Oldsmar, Safety Harbor, Davis Islands, Harbor Island, the north end of the bays, Old Tampa Bay, and near downtown. But it's a broad brush. It's a good 2 to 4 feet all the way up and down the coast. Most of the beaches will likely see about a 2 to 3 foot surge, which most can handle, but certainly you're going to notice the water is a little bit higher for sure. These are the tides just for St. Petersburg. Tampa, St. Pete, pretty similar. And notice by the time we get into tomorrow morning, all right, winds just starting to get a little breezy tomorrow, not big, but we've got a 2.4 foot high tide. And that's a pretty high tide for us. As the winds pick up, we go towards low tide at 7:47. The water's not going to get all the way down to this level, all right, by the evening hours. And in fact, after that low tide, as the tide's coming back up, we're pushing water in with the moon, and we're pushing water in with the wind. So 3:30 a.m. Wednesday morning, another high tide. Now, it's not as high as the initial one, at 2.5 almost. It's about a foot lower than that, thank goodness. But we're going to have 2 to 3 foot surge up in the bay for many areas.
So you add the storm surge to that already.
Yeah, this is
high
like a
tide
mean high tide level. And then storm surge would be over top of that level, you know, and sometimes we do it above mean ground level.
So if it was a 2 foot storm surge, is that almost 3.5 feet above normal water level?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, well, it's 2 foot above normal high tide.
Normal high tide.
But if you know, whatever that high tide is, and that's why I put the number on here, so 2.4. So what I'm telling people is, if you live at Shore Acres, you live in these places, watch the tide around 11:30, 12 o'clock tomorrow. Anywhere between 11 a.m. and 12 p.m. Watch the tide. You're going to need to probably add 1.5 foot on top of that.
Right.
That's probably what we'll be ending up seeing as surge, and it might even be 2 feet on top of that. We'll hate to see that, but
And a lot of that depends on that track, how close it is to the coast. And the stronger the winds,
Stronger
and,
the winds,
and
right.
the more water being pushed.
now look, if it's even further away, you're still going to push surge in there. Just because now you're talking a longer fetch, which means the area of water that the wind's blowing on, and probably longer time too now, instead of it just coming by and then blowing back the other way real fast. So either way, the tides of the 2 to 4 for surge looks good to me.
Okay.
Well, appropriate is what I should say. Doesn't look good. Thank you. All right, so tropical storm wind probability and arrival times. Most likely arrival time, this line right in here, there's Tampa, is Tuesday at 8 p.m. I'm thinking have everything wrapped up by 3 p.m. because you'll notice it getting breezy. We could have some gusts in the 40s by 4, 5, 6 o'clock easily. Okay? Highest winds, again, will be right along the immediate coast. So weather just goes downhill on Tuesday. Here's 40% chance now for tropical storm force winds. That's going to go up a little bit, but it's been going up. And just you're in a warning along the coast because we expect to see some winds in the 40 mile per hour range. Gusts to 60. Here's the rainfall amounts. GFS is closer to the coast. So it's got some higher numbers here. This might shift to the west a little bit. But you can see 4 to 6 inches in some areas, seeing a little bit more than that. And guys, that's on top of what we've been seeing.
And it's on top of whatever falls today.
Yeah, well, this kind of includes, I think this starts today. So we're starting even this morning. But that includes,
okay.
It includes what we're seeing today.
Okay.
So, but that does include on top of what we've been seeing the last several
True.
days. That number's not in there, I should say. All right, so here's the GFS for wind speeds. Let's go out to Tuesday morning, 10 a.m. Tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. You see where Fort Myers is starting to deal with it. Now look, the highest winds, if this happens, are out here. They're in this eastern eye wall right here, whatever structure that looks like, and perhaps in the northeast as well. Now, we will be in a tornado threat in this time. Most of our area this time, especially south of I-4. That's tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Just keep your eye on the clock up here as well, too. Now, let's go out to 6 p.m. tomorrow. There's the center. Highest winds south to southeast, right along the Longboat Key, Holmes Beach, Anna Maria Island. Long shore current, parallel to the beach. That is a big erosion issue right there.
Venice all the way to Siesta Key up, right?
Yeah, now down at Fort Myers, now the wind's blowing on shore. Now you got your surge.
Okay.
So the surge is down here. The center's up here. Your surge is going to be down here. Because you see this wind blowing in that direction there. That is what blows the water. So now watch as we go to about 9 p.m. tomorrow night. Look what's happening in the bay.
Anna Maria, look at that, right into the bay.
Right into the bay. So that's why the surge. Now we've got winds near 30, gusts in the 40s, probably some gusts in the 50s probably, most likely. Tomorrow night at 9 p.m. And then we'll go forward to 1 a.m. Wednesday morning. Winds still blowing on shore. They're coming down, but the surge is not going to drop too quick. The highest surge will, but the tides will remain really high. So if you're going to get 4 feet in Oldsmar, right, it's going to go from 4 feet down to 3 feet, but it's going to kind of hang out there and slowly go to 2 feet over time. So I think the peak surge maybe lasts about an hour or two, but then it stays not too much lower than that, but it will drop just a little bit. And then you start looking up here in Crystal River, still blowing offshore, 1 in the morning, but certainly before 4 in the morning, we're going to have quite a bit of wind onshore. 4 to 5 foot surge is possible in Crystal River. You know how shallow it is up there, so that's something we're going to have to watch there. Right now, Weather Service is saying 2 to 4, but if it comes in up here, you're going to have a little bit more than that in some locations. What do we got here? More winds. I got something else here, I think. Okay, so this is what we know right now, and you're looking at some questions too. Bottom line, 65 mile per hour tropical storm moving by tomorrow. Think Ada that we had last year in November. It was the last storm that came through. We had some issues, right? It'd be pretty similar to that. The impacts will be tomorrow afternoon through early morning on Wednesday. Wind, tornado, and rain threat. Well, rain's already here, right? Outer rain bands at least. Rain will get more steady and heavier during the afternoon tomorrow and evening.
Could be a windy, tough night to sleep tomorrow night.
That's what it's going to be.
Yeah.
And then the tornado threat through the afternoon. I mean, we're watching the cells that are out there now for something to come through, spin up. But certainly as we get into overnight tonight and tomorrow, all the way through, we'll be, tomorrow through about 9 p.m. or so, we'll be watching for tornadoes. After that, it'll go away. Surge and flooding, again, possible late night. Oops, sorry.
I didn't know you could move that.
That's possible here. Okay? So we're talking Tuesday night into early Wednesday morning. That's when the surge is. Unfortunately, it'll be dark for most of that. As the sun comes up on Wednesday, the waters will be dropping a little bit, at least in the Tampa area. It will still be building, I think, up into Crystal River.
And as far as the bridges, if you missed this, really the only bridge you're concerned about with this forecast really is the Sunshine Skyway. That probably will get shut down.
Yeah.
The other
Probably
bridges
get shut down tomorrow.
should be okay, but you never know. You're going to have to watch that as well.
That's right. So the western end of the Gandy Bridge, even the eastern end, but the western end of the Howard Franklin, you get a lot of overspray with
What
that.
was the one I went to MOR last year?
Oh, I can't think. Don't.
Whatever it was, that I came back across and the water was crazy. I mean, it was splashing 30, 40 feet high in the sky. It was terrifying. And the bridge was still open then, and it was a surprise, really.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Bobby, finish this, and I'll whip out some questions.
I think that's it. I'll kind of leave this up while we're going through questions.
Okay, let's see what we got here. had a lot of people just asking about their towns. And guys, he showed you where the current tropical storm warning is. And just to recap, mainly that is coastal areas. You get inland, and there's a little less likelihood of seeing those tropical storm force winds. I guess that's why it's a watch instead of a warning at this point.
Yeah, 100%. So Polk County, I mean, Hardy, DeSoto, Highlands, you're not even in a tropical storm watch. You have nothing. You probably end up in a tornado watch, but that's not even an issue at this particular point as well.
Hey, Bobby, we got a bit of a hater here. Kevin Tucker says it's not going to surge on the midday tide. Stop fear-mongering. Can you explain just why you're talking about those tides and when there will be some surge starting, especially in that part of the bay?
Yeah, so the tide will be just normally high anyways because of the new moon coming. Tuesday afternoon, tomorrow afternoon, right? The wind's blowing out of the east tomorrow, so most of the day's okay. Southeast winds will start blowing in the afternoon. And that would just pile up water anyways up in the northern part of the bay, but the water's dropping. It's going towards low tide. It's not going to drop like this all the way because southeast winds will just steadily increase throughout the late afternoon and evening hours. So you see it going from 2.4 down to 0. That's not going to get all the way down to 0. And then as the moon pulls on the ocean and the ocean water comes back up, at that time, past 8 o'clock Tuesday night, now we're turning the winds around, and it's just going to be going with it. The tide's coming in, and the wind's coming in.
Yeah. So Kevin, not fear-mongering, just trying to explain how this water is going to go and where it's going to race. Someone asked Bobby Phyllis Smith about the airports.
Okay, so the thing about the airports, good call. Once the winds reach 40 miles per hour at Tampa International, they start trimming back their services. That's the airport. That means they may have the shuttle going, but it may not be as frequent, things like that. Airlines are separate, believe it or not, from the airport. Airlines will decide, hey, bye Natalie, thank you. Airlines are separate. They will decide on their own, hey, we want to move planes out of there. So we're canceling flights at whatever time, right? And that's completely up to the airline. So the airport's like, okay, look, we've got our rules. You guys have to move planes. You got fuel concerns. You've got all, the airport doesn't get into passengers on Southwest Airlines, right? Southwest Airlines handles that. So there's two different things going on at the airport. A tornado warning or lightning, which we don't tend to see a whole lot of in hurricanes, believe it or not, we don't see a whole lot of lightning. But a tornado warning or a severe thunderstorm near the airport, lots of lightning, could cause a ground stop. And TPA will actually call that. They'll make the call. The guys in the tower, they're watching for all of that stuff. If you have flights planned for tomorrow or coming in, I think the Bolts tomorrow will be coming home. They'd be landing around 2. That's about as late as I would want to be getting to do that. Because after that, the wind's steadily going to increase. You're probably okay through about 6 p.m. tomorrow evening. But again, winds will be increasing by that time. We could see winds sustained in the 20s and 30s with gusts well into the 40s at that time.
Okay. Morris Brown, a lot of people are asking about their town. We don't want to go over every town. That's just take too long. But what to expect in Highlands County, and the reason I ask this question is because our inland will be a little bit different. So in a broad brush, what can our inland counties expect?
Good call. Good question. So let's look at what's happening right now. All right. So you see this moisture coming up here. See all this expanding right up into here. See all that? That's actually from the storm itself. So as the storm moves northward, the highest winds are right along the immediate coast, right? This is where you have your warning, all up in here. That's where we expect the highest winds, including Crystal River. So out here, you've got these little cells, right? You see all these cells that are developing, and they're moving quick, and they will continue to move quick. Those will produce 1 to 2 inch rainfall rates per hour. Some of them even more than that. So you can get just a really thick, heavy downpour, and then it stops, right? And then you get another one. And inside of those, especially tomorrow, we could get some spin-up tornadoes, some quick movers. So that's the main effect for Highlands, even Polk, Hardy, DeSoto counties. All right? And so the only other thing that we'll watch is if we end up getting training of storms, for instance, they'll all be kind of moving eventually off in this distance like this. And so if you're sitting in Lake Placid and we've got one after the other right over there, then you would get a flooding situation. But Otherwise, outside of individual storms, you're looking at not a lot of wind for those locations.
And I know some people ask about the storm shutters, Bobby. You know, and I was seeing earlier, like someone from the National Hurricane Center said their real concern is when there's a hurricane watch for your area.
Yeah.
But so that's a tough call for people. People are confused on this.
Yeah, well, and it's a part of it has to be part of your plan. So, like when I told friends that we're talking about, I'm like, look, I wouldn't board up for this. However, one side of my house has a bunch of big old trees, and it faces a bunch of big windows, and so I've got to take into account what my house looks like and what my surroundings are around my house. Maybe I would put the boards on that side of the house and not the other, right? Because a limb could break. Do you have something across the street where there could be a bunch of debris that could blow around?
Like in my neighborhood, they're building houses around
There
me.
you
So
go,
on that
100%.
side, you want to protect that debris from blowing into your place. So it might be wise then.
This is not going to be a storm for most folks away from the coast where it's going to be a lot of debris blowing around like that. This is not, the highest winds are going to be right along the coast. So if you're in that warning area, which again is right there along the coast, you may want to consider it. But again, I've been telling a lot of folks, that I know, and I just know their houses, that probably not something that you need to do. And again, it really depends on where you're at.
Okay. And anybody in mobile homes, get a question about that?
Yeah, so mobile homes, when you get to that 40 mile per hour threshold, you're getting pretty close to causing you're going to see some damage in some locations. The blue here, while I'm at it, is where we have the tropical storm warnings. If you live in that area, then you need to be considering maybe you go somewhere else. And that's part of your plan. If you live in a mobile home, part of your hurricane plan is like, well, if we get a watch or a warning, I got to go. I got to go to my friend's house, right? It's probably what you should do more than anything else. A lot of mobile home parks will have a centralized building, and usually it's a block building. It's a pretty good building, and that's where you would go, if you have a tornado warning or something, or if the winds get too big. But make sure you can get to that place safely, just in case.
And Tom wants to know quickly, is Seminole Largo considered along the coast? Certainly they're in the
Tom, yeah.
You're right there.
That's one thing, this is a good example. Know where you live on the map, because this is Crystal River. Have you ever been up to see the mermaids in Weeki Wachee? That's right there.
It's on my list.
Tarpon Springs is right there. It's really cool.
Yeah.
Downtown Tampa is right there. St. Pete's right there. Anna Maria is right there. Somebody asking about is Pinellas along the coast. Pinellas is the coast, right? And you can see this is Pinellas County. So when somebody will ask, what about Pinellas Park? And they'll say, well, what about Largo? It's all the same.
Okay, so you get into Manatee and Sarasota County, would you say 75 is the cutoff?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. You can see 75 right here. And in fact, it's 75 in Hillsborough, too.
There you go. So that's a good thing to remember.
Yeah, until you get over, like, Tampa Road is in it. Line Ball is probably the cutoff.
Okay.
A little further north of Line Ball, you're probably in a watch and not a warning.
Just because you're a little farther away from the water.
That's all it is.
Okay.
That's all it is, yeah.
Good stuff, guys. Bobby, that's the majority of the question. I mean, everybody wants to know about their particular town, but guys, you just have to know where you are, look at the watches and warnings, and we'll have updates on this all night tonight. We have a team of meteorologists going around the clock. I mean, we will be with you every minute of the way until now, from the time the storm passes.
So you look at these winds, 30 to 40, potentially a little more right at the beach, certainly a lot less further inland you go, east of I-75.
There you go.
Okay, so some folks are going to, I'm waiting for the meme that shows the lawn chair blown over and they said, we will rebuild. Because some folks are not going to have this bad, right? But look, guys, some folks are going to have flooding in their homes from storm surge in some of these low-lying areas.
And still, I mean, you can't completely rule out some intensification. So once it crosses Cuba, we got to watch that forward speed for one. How disorganized is it? And then what's the forward speed? And is the track farther west, closer to the coast? Still a lot of unknowns here. But this forecast has been fairly consistent, really, for us.
Yeah, especially the last 12 to 24 hours actually hasn't changed too much. Again, the trend almost is to go a little bit further towards the west. I don't think the Hurricane Center will do that. I think they're going to keep it pretty much right where it is. Remember, the center can go anywhere in this cone. This has nothing to do with where the weather is, where the winds are, where the rain is, not directly, okay? It's going to be some southwesterly shear. It's going to blow more rain our way. Hopefully that keeps it from intensifying.
Yeah, and the thing to remember, it's It's the center of the storm, about 60 to 70 miles out. That's where the worst wind is. So the farther west it tracks, the farther it takes that wind danger, that wind impact.
Yep, and you've got the center line sitting right in here, and then you just do let's actually just do this. Let's measure. So if it is this far, that's 45 miles
Pounding the
offshore.
coastal areas. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So you're within that area where tropical storm force winds are expected, 70 miles out. Okay, guys, that's it. 10 Tampa Bay at 5. Get ready to start. We'll be here all evening. Autumn will be here as well, and we're looking to just stay relatively calm. I mean, go Bolts. That's what we're really looking for tonight.
Hold it. Do you want him to win tonight, or do you want him to win it at home?
I want him to win it at home, but I don't want to mess with it.
I know. It's a
Just
tough. It's
win
a
it.
tough. Yeah.
And Amalie is sold out. There's not even a game in there. It's fantastic.
Isn't that great?
And by the way, tonight there will be passing showers, on and off. Not a whole lot, but rule out showers even past 10:45. The game's over, something like that. You still have a chance to see some heavy rain pushing through. Okay, guys, that's it. Thank you. We will be back to you later this evening. We'll do another one of these, get you updated.
Have a good one, guys.